The death toll from Hurricane Helene is now more than 200 people, 220 people, while hundreds of others remain unaccounted for. Such tragic figures didn't stop some of the extreme members of the Republican Party from gaslighting the American public about the cause of the storm, with Marjorie Taylor Greene tweeting, and I quote, "Yes, they control the weather. It's ridiculous for anyone to lie and say it can't be done." So, Marjorie, who are they? Who are the they you are referring to? Exactly. Democrats? Jewish space lasers? Who knows? Meanwhile, Donald Trump appeared alongside Georgia Governor Brian Kemp after surveying the damage left by Hurricane Helene in the battleground state. It was yet another opportunity for Trump to bash and lie about the Biden White House for its hurricane response, despite his own unhinged response to disasters when he was president. Jonathan Allen, Sarah Matthews, and Alicia Johnson are back with me. So this is probably, in many respects, some of the most asinine and galling parts of what comes out of this Republican Party, Sarah, is in a moment of national crisis where we're all trying to deal with what happened. We have loved ones and family and friends who have been affected by the storm. The government is pulling together its resources to respond accordingly. You have these individuals who want to go out and deliberately put out misinformation. So, for example, you have FEMA now having to warn of Helene misinformation, having to launch a rumor response page on their website so that people will get the facts. What the hell's wrong with these people? I mean, these aren't the same people that you and I worked with over these many years. I just don't get it. I mean, in a national tragedy, you love Donald Trump so much that you're going to parrot that kind of crazy out there and promote conspiracy, which, quite frankly, could wind up having people hurt and harmed, not getting the resources and the help they need because they're following Donald Trump and Marjorie Taylor Greene stupid down a rabbit hole?
Yeah, it's very clear to me Republicans are not sending their best and brightest to Washington anymore. It is unimaginable to me that at a time when so many of our fellow Americans are suffering, going through probably the worst experience of their lives right now, and what do these politicians decide to do? Politicize it. And what does Donald Trump try to do? Spread lies about it. He was saying that the governor of Georgia, Brian Kemp, couldn't get in touch with Joe Biden. The governor said that wasn't true, that Biden offered him anything that his state needed. Now Trump is out there saying that FEMA, they don't have enough money for relief for the victims of the hurricane because they were using that money on undocumented immigrants. Right. And the crazy thing is that Washington Post did a fact check, and it was actually Donald Trump during his administration who is taking money from FEMA in the relief fund to use on undocumented immigrants, not the Biden administration.
I'm glad you brought that up because, Alicia, when you look at that, you had Trump initially refused to approve disaster aid for California after deadly wildfires in 2018 because of the state's Democratic leanings. An ex-aide told Politico, adding that Trump changed his mind after Harvey pulled voting results to show him that the heavily damaged Orange County, California, had more Trump supporters than the entire state of Iowa. At that point, Donald Trump was, okay, then we can put some aid in there.
I mean, if there's anyone clearly having a pattern of making this about politics, it is Donald Trump. And it's extremely frustrating. Over 200 Americans have been dead and have been found dead and counting, right? These are families. People have lost their entire livelihoods, right? Like, they can't go back into their homes. And the other piece of this is I just continue to have that image of Donald Trump in contrast to, in moments like this, we are looking for a comforter in chief, right? Someone that can literally go anywhere, red state, blue state, and literally be there to say, I am here with you. Donald Trump was in Puerto Rico tossing paper towels at people, right? And I remember when, like, we laughed at it because it was crazy, but it's so inhumane. Yeah. And for this man to come out and lie, but then the other sad piece of this is that there are so many people who believe what he says versus the numerous fact checks that are out there by actual credible journalists. So in addition to the Republican Party having to rebuild itself once, they get through Trump, we also have to sow more trust in actual facts in journalism in this country after him, because there is no reason that we are disputing these facts when Brian Kemp is literally on air saying we missed each other's phone call, but we eventually start talking to each other.
And so that's a nice pivot to you, sir, back to the media, because, as another fact check in 2017, North Carolina, after Hurricane Matthew, made the request for aid. The Democratic governor of the state at that time, Roy Cooper, made the request. And Donald Trump's FEMA, under the instructions that I presume came from somewhere up the chain, only gave them 1% of the money that they wanted. How in your position, when you guys are sitting down and covering, how do you get these stories out in a way to help people understand what the history, not just what the fact check is, but what the history, because we've got two sightings right here, just in 2017 and 2018, where the Trump administration did something very different than what they're blaming the current administration for doing. How do you guys cover that aspect of trying to keep that timeline intact?
I mean, not to mention the wild stuff that was going on in the Trump administration during the pandemic.
Yes.
With regard to FEMA, basically ignoring the entire existing federal structure as much as possible, creating side structures to try to bid on, gloves and things like that. I mean, it was a truly inefficient model for helping people. They did help some people, obviously, but it was inefficient.
Right.
Look, I think we do the best that we can to find, for those of us who have a history remembering these things, we report on the things we remember and double check those. Also try to get out accurate new information. I thought it was really instructive that the congressman from Western North Carolina, Chuck Edwards, a freshman who is very conservative, came out this week and praised FEMA, said he was criticizing them for not water wasn't coming in fast enough. He asked for a certain number of pallets. There weren't cell phone, temporary cell phone towers. There weren't enough of those in his district, and he complained about it. And then within 24 hours, those things arrived. Pallets upon pallets of water arrived from FEMA, and he, to his credit, praised FEMA, even though it's not politically helpful for him to, praise the Biden administration. So, I think you look for, people like that who are telling the truth and get their messages out there. I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene's out talking about who controls the weather. I mean, I think most of us look at that as a scientific phenomenon, but even if you look at the Bible would tell you that God controls the weather, right? Think. So, like, it's not a they. It's not like it's not the Democrats or Jewish people who control space lasers,
yes.
who thinks exist out there.
And I'm sorry.
God now.
Exactly. I'm just sorry, folks. That for me is just a whole special kind of stupid. I can't. The fact that a current member of Congress puts something like that out in public, you should be ashamed of yourself, Marjorie. You need to go home and sit in the closet and check yourself.